in my last church plant, and maybe around 10 years ago, I began that ministry there. And one Sunday, a lady came to our church from a non-Christian background. And her family was part of a priestly group in their religion. And
so she was a religious leader in the community.
Yes. And so she came to the previous weekend to that Sunday. She went to her hometown, and she wanted to commit suicide, and she was about to consume poison, commit suicide, and then she didn't do, and she came back to the city, and the next Sunday she was in our church. And so she came to the church with poison. Poison was there in her bag. So I was ministering and I was preaching from Ezekiel about dry bones. And it was not that exciting Sunday, but after my message, and we used to pray for people. And while praying, I got this word of knowledge of prophetical insight. So I said this, there is a person in this room who wanted to commit suicide, but God is loving you. God's Father's love coming upon you and healing you and delivering you. And no one responded, nothing happened in the room, but I prayed for that word and person. And then that week, we came to know this lady went back and threw away poison and accepted the Lord, and eventually she took baptism and became part of our church. Yeah, so that's why we said.
That's just so amazing to me. So you were preaching and you just got a sense, or you somehow got a sense that there was someone in the room who wanted to commit suicide.
Yes, and this often happen in our ministry. We strongly believe in prophetical move, prophetical ministry, where we get insight about what's going on in people's life and what can happen, and so it's our experience. It's keep happening in our ministry.
You know, it's so interesting that he shares that story because, like I said, I would hope to do a series soon on 1 Corinthians. But what he shared right there lines up perfectly with the way the Apostle Paul says that the gift of prophecy should work. In 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 24 and 25, he says, "But if an unbeliever or an inquirer comes in while everyone is prophesying, they are convicted of sin and are brought under judgment by all, as the secrets of their hearts are laid bare. So they will fall down and worship God, exclaiming, God is really among you." There's this idea that if we are prophesying, a non-believer is going to, just like what happened here, they're going to know God must be among you. I'll be honest, that's never happened to me while I was preaching. I've never had something like that specific instance happen. Wow.
That's why today Pastor was encouraging, we have to seek, knock, and ask this experience. And when we do that, definitely God is going to give us those kind of experiences.
I remember when we talked last week, I asked you, what do you feel like is the one thing we can do as a church? Hold on a second. When you said apologetics doesn't really seem to work among the non-believers in India, that resonated with me so much, because if you haven't figured out, that's where we're at, okay, in our culture. Yeah, once in a while, someone is just convinced by a well-crafted argument, but as a whole, not working. Okay? And that's part of why I've been longing for, what Jesus says, being clothed with power from on high, because I feel like we need more than just well-crafted words based on the need that we have. And so I remember I asked you, what can we do? What do you feel like we can do to see things like this happen in our midst? I don't know if you remember what you said to me.
Definitely, I would say prayer and see if you want to move in a prophetical ministry, you really need to tune yourself with God through your heart, through your ears. Then only you can actually, hear, His impressions, His voice that coming to us. So I would definitely say prayer will help us to tune ourselves with God. And then, secondly, I would say sometimes we have to take a risk. There is an amount of risk that we need to take, and
Say
because
that again. I'm sorry. We have what?
a risk, sometimes we have to come out from the comfort zone and move in faith.
Kind of like we're
Step-
prompted, like stepping
yeah,
out in faith.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we need courage for that. We
Yep.
need to take an amount of risk or step of faith that will help us.